I'm going to have linked the video I did on how the Patriots can upset the Seahawks, but this video will be going over why the Seahawks are favored and ultimately which side I go with. Truly, I am rooting for both teams to have fun, so in solidarity with that, I'm wearing blue to support both teams. For my money, I am going with May over Darnold in just about any way, but aside from that, there's so much to like here for the Seahawks, and part of that is with what they're going to do to the quarterback. And it's pretty despicable stuff. I can't fully get into it because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube, but they just make everything so difficult on the quarterback. You wouldn't know it because Stafford sliced and diced them pretty well last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. Pro Bowl kind of throws things off, but they are just incredibly hard to match up with because they're so moldable, but they also have a very cohesive identity as well that they like to get into. And part of that identity is just disrupting the quarterback at every single drop back, just about, because that shows in the sack plus hurry combination where they're 10% more prevalent in that per game than the Patriots are. And to contextualize that a little bit more, the Seahawks have played one less game than the Patriots, given the Seahawks had the bye and the Patriots didn't. They still have 12 more sacks than the Patriots. That is absurd. That is a lot of sacks, and to do that in one less game is just ridiculous stuff. So, credit to the Patriots, they are getting more hurries than the Seahawks to make it not be, like 1,000% more in favor of the Seahawks, but still, the Seahawks are getting the most valuable type of pressure on quarterbacks, and it is just so much worse when you factor in this coverage is super serious. They do not allow any sort of archetype to thrive here because Devin Witherspoon, honestly, I think should be in the mix for Depoy. I think he was that level. I was just looking at the stats. You have to go back 7 years to Jair Alexander to find a higher rated PFF corner that played 50% or more of snaps at least. That is really good company to be in. Prime Jair is a fantastic player, and Witherspoon was right there with him. Alexander, I think, had a 91 grade. Witherspoon had a 90. That is great territory, and Witherspoon plays up to that. That's not just PFF being nerds and seeing stuff that isn't really there, according to the Chad film watchers that like their way of watching film more than PFF. Witherspoon is really, really good. And he is just going to make things so difficult pretty much by himself because Diggs has played half and half in the slot and outside. Witherspoon can follow you anywhere. They don't really play man too much in Seattle, but he'll play in the slot, make it difficult if you're in the slot. He'll play outside, make it difficult there. But you add in Emin is, in my opinion, the defensive rookie of the year. And then you add in that Josh Jobe is not a good corner, to be completely honest, but Reek Woolen is very nice in spurts at least. He can sometimes be a little bit of an idiot, to be completely honest, not just by getting that taunting penalty against the Rams that wasn't ideal, but sometimes he just doesn't play as smart as he should because he has been able to get by with just being an absolute freak athletically, so sometimes he doesn't always play to his caliber, but either way, there is super high-end talent and then not the worst to round it out. And then you factor in that Julian Love can be a very high-end safety in the box, in deep responsibilities. He can move around with the best of them. There's just so much versatility with this defense. And linebacker-wise, Ernest Jones is going to eat up the offensive line for the Patriots as well, to be completely honest, which is weird to say for a linebacker, but Jones is really, really good at stopping the run. And he's not a zero in coverage. He's not great at it by any stretch, but he's not the lead coverage guy. That's Drake as the better coverage option at linebacker. He's really good at that. He's also really good at run defense. So, as you've seen, there's just not really anything to pick on here. And that is really difficult then for the Patriots where, Diggs is a high-end receiver. He's not the highest end, but he's a high-end receiver. And, Booty can do some stuff. There's stuff to like. Mac Hollins, good run blocker or anything else? Not really. So the Patriots are relying on you having some weaknesses to, exploit of, their lack of superstar talent for the most part. And that's just not going to happen with these Hawks. They are so good all around. That's why I went into such detail on just how good this defense is all around. The defensive line, again, 12 more sacks in one less game. It is going to just be relentless for me. The offensive line for the Patriots, they can put up a fight. They're not a bad line by any stretch, and May helps them out a lot with great scrambling. He can run up the middle through the pocket just fine in a Josh Allen type of crazy way. But at the end of the day, there is liable to be pressure from anywhere, any given play. The defensive line is a good matchup here as well. Will Campbell and Uchenna Nwosu. Not the biggest skill difference, I wouldn't say. Nwosu is a very good player. Campbell has been a very good rookie at the very least, but he can get abused quite a lot by speed rushers, and Nwosu has a good amount of that. Not quite maybe what he was at his absolute peak, but Nwosu can get around the edge. He does also have, countering to that. He's not just finesse. So Campbell is going to have to be much better than he has been throughout the playoffs. He's been just terrorized by Benito and terrorized also by Will Anderson, Will on Will crime. So Campbell is going to be so impactful here. If he doesn't give proper protection, this entire game plan is just going to be a dud pretty much. So a lot of stress on a rookie there, hey, if you don't do your job, we're just going to get devastated. But also, the right side, Morgan Moses is a good tackle, don't get me wrong, but DeMarcus Lawrence is really good on the edge too, and Lawrence is particularly going to abuse him in the run game, weirdly enough, where, Moses is a good run blocker as well. He's a very good player in that he is very balanced. He doesn't really have a weakness to his game. That's how he's been his entire career. He just hasn't really been healthy enough to show it and get that reputation. But Lawrence as a run defender is as good as it gets on the edge. He can just throw you to the ground at will. He can hold his, gap perfectly fine. That is going to be hard to get to the outside. Interior-wise, oh my gosh, Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, that is going to be, very dangerous for the interior of the Patriots line. That is not good. It is not a total weakness like the Seahawks interior has been, which is a little bit of a spoiler for one of the things I like for the Patriots here. But my goodness, this is as good as it gets on the interior, just about. Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy can both get after you in the passing game, but also they're holding up in the run. Leonard Williams has always been a pretty darn high-end option, but also Byron Murphy, he's coming on really strong. So it's going to be tough to get any sort of consistent offense here. If you get, a good run, you might get backed up with a sack. If you get a bad run in the first place, they're going to tee off of you in the pass game, knowing that you're going to pass. Really difficult to see a cohesive thing here for the Patriots to like, because especially, beyond the interior being weak in a pass blocking sense, which is going to be abused by Williams and Murphy, again, they're good at stopping the run. Murphy doesn't necessarily have the build of somebody that's super conventionally good in the run. He's not the biggest guy, but he is quick to shoot gaps, and he can hold up. So unless you're getting Onwenu on Murphy, I don't see a single matchup here, honestly, that I feel good about in really the passing or running game across the line. And that's irrespective to DeMafe being a good rotational piece for Seattle, making things difficult. They're always going to be fresh for the most part, at least on the edge there. They're going to feel really good. So they're going to be coming in waves, and again, Mafe could get some trouble going for Campbell as well, particularly. So there's so much difficult stuff here. It is hard to see any world where the Patriots are able to put up points. And I think there is that possibility that things turn disastrous, honestly, and the Patriots, you never want to say that a team's just going to be completely shut down, even with a great defense like Seattle, but they very well could, in my opinion, because McDonald, too, scheming up stuff, he's going to make things very difficult on May. He's been ahead of the curve with progressing as a quarterback, but at the end of the day, he is in year 1.5 basically, since he didn't play all of last year, or he didn't play the entirety of last year, I should say. But the looks he's going to see, McDonald loves to give you a look and then just completely change it post snap. He loves to play with your mind by actually showing the look and then playing the look as well, so it's not just like, oh, whatever I see here is not going to be. No, he'll tease you. The simulated pressure is going to be great, as it always is. The blitzing is not super prevalent, but when they dial it up, it always seems to work. So I think May could really be in trouble here, even though he is a premier quarterback already. I just think matchup-wise, it's going to be tough. McDaniels, really good offensive mind that's had a ton of success in big games, but at the end of the day here, we are talking about being behind the 8 ball schematically more than likely, in addition to the talent just being really in favor of Seattle on that side. Especially, New England just doesn't run the ball effectively. 26th in rushing success rate when you exclude garbage time. Number 1 against the run for Seattle. Also number 1 in defensive expected points added against the run, excluding garbage time. So they don't let you have success consistently. They don't let you have big plays. The thing with the offense here on the other side is you can feel good about the coverage all day. You really can. The Patriots are going to make things about as difficult for you in coverage as any team will. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to win your matchup. And winning your matchup against JSN, even if you are a Christian Gonzalez, is super hard. Because JSN is just getting freakishly insane average depth of target and efficiency with yards per route run. That is again, all-time stuff in the PFF era of 2006 onwards, where he's not the fastest guy, but he gets deep, and he's getting yards per route run that only Puka Nacua has been able to even approach. So do you really feel good about that if you're anybody? You could substitute it with if Witherspoon was covering JSN. Would you feel good then? I still really wouldn't. So Gonzalez, he's not as good as Witherspoon. I love Gonzalez. I love Witherspoon. So I'm not saying that out of hate. That's not really up for discussion. It's a tough matchup, and again, the Witherspoon on Diggs thing I like because Witherspoon I like more than Gonzalez. Diggs I like less than JSN. So that really is just such a defining thing here. The Patriots are not going to be able to play man like they've played for some of the year. They have transitioned to more of a zone type of cover 4 even in certain matchups with Stroud, so they can really play conservatively on defense and play man, but they're going to have to get one-dimensional here because, on the key third downs, you hope that Gonzalez wins his matchup against JSN, but some of the stuff JSN does from a route running perspective is honestly just absolutely disgusting. It's some of the filthiest stuff you'll ever see in your entire life. So that's going to be hard to manage. And then at that point, Shaheed is liable to get deep, even, if he's not on Davis, who is a bit slow, so he can be beat. Shaheed is going to get deep with most people. So that becomes tough then if you are slanting coverage to JSN. Cup over Jones, I like in the slot. So I do just think, there's enough here that you feel good about for Seattle's offense, whereas with the Patriots offense, it's just going to be so difficult. I want to be clear, I'm not going back on what I've said with the Patriots standing a chance. I don't think it's going to be they put up 14 points and Seattle puts up 28 and it's just, a flood. But I do just think there is the low potential for the Patriots. There's the low floor for them where they could put up just, like the 14 I've been saying. But I do also think that, their high end is they get to, like maybe 27. Seattle, I think you feel like they're going to be in that range as kind of a default. So you don't have to read between the lines too much there to see that I am going with Seattle here. I do think, again, the Patriots stand a chance. I'm not fronting on the video I did where I say the Patriots have some life. I just think the stuff the Seahawks do will be at a far easier clip than what the Patriots will be able to do. And at that point, you just would be, I think, foolish to go with the team that's going to have a harder job consistently getting things done. Again, the Patriots, they're not going to go down easy. It's not like they are just, strictly a coverage team on defense and, just kind of and some guys on offense. They do have some stuff that you feel good about. But I look at the matchups and there's so many I like for Seattle and not a whole lot that I like for New England. So those are my thoughts on the Super Bowl. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section. Be sure to follow. Be sure to like or rate if you're on the podcast. Thank you for watching, and be sure to treat yourself like a friend.